Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference hosted by the State Council Information Office. Recently, the State Council Information Office has held several press conferences to brief you on the situation in Hong Kong, and today we have with us the spokespersons, Mr. Guang and Ms. Xu Luying, from the State Council Hong Kong and Macao Affairs Office, and they will brief you on the recent developments in Hong Kong and answer your questions. Now, I first will give the floor to Mr. Guang for some opening remarks. Friends from the media, good afternoon. Ms. Xu Luying and I have come to the State Council Information Office again, to this press conference room, to give you some updates on the situation in Hong Kong and our views. Some positive changes are emerging in Hong Kong. Most importantly, to put an end to violence and chaos and restore order has become the strongest and broadest consensus of the Hong Kong society. Representatives across the spectrum in Hong Kong and many social organizations and associations have issued statement, advertisement, and remarks to jointly denounce violent and unlawful acts and support strict enforcement by the police. On August 17th, defying the downpour, as many as 500,000 people joined the rally standing up to violence for Hong Kong's sake. The scene is highly touching. The SAR government and police firmly deal with unlawful and criminal activities. By September the 2nd, 1,117 people were arrested, including 3 members of the Legislative Council suspected of involvement in crimes. Chief Executive Carrie Lam and competent departments have been actively engaged in dialogue and exchange with all walks of life to gain a deeper understanding of public concerns and expectations, and introduced swift measures to address difficulties facing the residents and businesses. It's worth noting that overseas Chinese stand in solidarity with compatriots in Hong Kong and people across China. The Chinese communities and students in many parts of the world have initiated rallies, hoisted national flag, and sung the national anthem to express their deep love for the motherland. Strong indignation against Hong Kong independence and violent activities. Such moves are touching and invigorating. That said, it must be pointed out that the situation in Hong Kong remains complex and grim. Violent and unlawful activities are yet to be fully checked. Sometimes, at some places, a handful of rioters went mad and committed horrendous crimes. They took the police as the main target and attacked them with deadly weapons such as sharp iron sticks, petrol bombs, and iron bars. They encircled police residents and viciously and illegally spread online the personal information of the police and their families, recklessly inciting attacks to hurt or even kill the police, and fomenting anti-police sentiment. On August 30th, an off-duty police was attacked by 3 perpetrators with a knife, suffering serious wounds to his limbs and back. Such frenzied acts are appalling. Rioters attacked, humiliated, and illegally detained innocent tourists at the airport, and brazenly obstructed rescue efforts by the police and medical workers. They trumpeted mutual destruction, a local term for suicidal attempts and violence, resorted to bank runs, creating financial shocks, blocking traffic, and vandalizing public facilities and other extreme means to pile pressure on the SAR government. They shouted pro-independence slogans and begged for interference by some foreign governments. On August 31st, in disregard of police disapproval, they held illegal demonstrations in several places, especially the bustling commercial area, attempting to They hurled large numbers of petrol bombs to the police and government buildings and attempting to storm the central government's office in Hong Kong, the legislature, and government headquarters. In 32 MTR stations, or one-third of the total stations in Hong Kong, they recklessly damaged subway facilities. On September the 1st, a few rioters stormed the Tongchuan station's control room and caused severe damage, gravely threatening safe operation of the subway line. They disrupted transport links to the airport, causing over 6 hours of suspension of services of Airport Express and other lines, affecting travels of a great number of tourists. They even provoked kids for evil intentions and incited boycotting classes, using students as pawns to achieve their political motives. These facts have shown that the few rioters' actions have far exceeded the scope of normal assemblies or rallies. Such actions in any country, any region, or under any legal systems constitute violent crimes. They are out-and-out thugs. Now more and more people in Hong Kong have come to realize that the situation that started over the proposed amendment bill has changed into a totally different nature. A few thugs with their illegal and criminal acts have shown to the world that their purpose and targets are no longer about the amendment bill. They reduce themselves to foot soldiers of external forces and anti-China forces to destabilize Hong Kong, and committed violence and breached the law, with the purpose of making Hong Kong chaotic and paralyzing the SAR government, then taking over the jurisdiction of the SAR and turning Hong Kong into an independent or semi-independent political entity, with the pretext of a high degree of autonomy and Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong. They want to achieve full autonomy to confront the central government and eventually making the one country, two systems cease to function except in name.
Now we have come to a critical juncture of sticking to the red line of the one country, two systems principle and safeguarding prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. All those who truly care about and love Hong Kong must be clear-eyed, stand firm, and fully recognize that on stopping violence and turbulence, a matter of major principle that concerns the future of Hong Kong, there is no middle ground and no room for hesitation, indecision, or half-heartedness. Defend one country, two systems resolutely if you truly love Hong Kong. Take concrete steps and say no to activities that jeopardize Hong Kong's prosperity and stability and challenge the one country, two systems bottom lines if you truly love Hong Kong. So here, let us share with you 3 suggestions. First, we hope the SAR government and people from all sectors in Hong Kong will further build consensus and take actions for bringing an end to violence and restoring order. What is the biggest danger facing Hong Kong right now? Well, that would be the rampant violence and laxity in the rule of law. What do people in Hong Kong want the most right now? Well, that would be to reject violence, uphold the rule of law, and ensure security and stability. What is the biggest common denominator in the Hong Kong society? Well, that would be to stop violence and restore order. The SAR government, including the executive, legislative, and judicial bodies, and all sectors in Hong Kong, must take ending violence and restoring order as the most important, most pressing, and overwhelming task in Hong Kong. Everyone has a responsibility in safeguarding our homeland. We hope that every resident in Hong Kong, through their own actions, can reject and stop violence and support Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government and the police to fight and punish violent crimes in accordance with the law, support the SAR prosecution and judicial authorities in performing their duties, and ensuring that all violent criminals will receive their due punishment and demonstrate the justice and authority of the law. Well, in particular, for those hardcore perpetrators of violent crimes and the masterminds, organizers, and directors pulling the strings behind the scenes, they must be brought to justice with no leniency. All relevant authorities must make swift and resolute actions. There shall be no lapse, no loopholes, and no laxity in the rule of law. Second, we hope that you could distinguish peaceful demonstrations to express aspirations from violent crimes and activities that challenge the red line of one country, two systems. Demonstrations and assembly are freedoms given to Hong Kong residents under the Basic Law. Most of the residents that participate in the demonstrations, including the young students, well, regardless of their reasons for participation or the kind of aspirations they might have, as long as they demonstrate peacefully in accordance with law, and as long as their activities are consistent with the one country, two systems principle, then their activities are allowed under the law. Participation in the peaceful demonstrations are entirely different in nature from those crimes of violence, attacking central authorities' institutions in Hong Kong, defacing and insulting national flags and emblems, violently attacking police and innocent citizens, vandalizing public and private properties, and endangering public security. Such crimes must be combated to the fullest extent of the law, and there is no room for leniency. In the face of crimes, enforcing and upholding the law is the just and the right thing to do. Third, and I also must emphasize that all central authorities in Hong Kong and our institutions in Hong Kong, including the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong SAR, the Office of the Commissioner of the Foreign Ministry of the PRC in the Hong Kong SAR, and the PLA garrison in the Hong Kong SAR, represent the state, and their safety and dignity shall not be challenged. And third, we hope you could focus on the fundamental issues concerning Hong Kong's economic growth and the improvement of people's well-being, contribute ideas and suggestions, and seek common solutions. While these tensions have reflected some deep-seated problems in the Hong Kong society, which have come to a point where they must be taken seriously and addressed through effective measures. The ordinary residents, especially the young people, often complain about housing difficulties, the big income gap, and difficulties in upward mobility. Well, these social problems have been built up over the years for complex reasons and require effective measures to address the root causes. Well, recently, some people with good sense from Hong Kong, the mainland, and the rest of the world have put forth quite a few insightful suggestions. We support Chief Executive Carrie Lam and her management team in communicating with people and young people from all sectors in Hong Kong through the dialogue platform and discuss solutions on relevant issues. Hong Kong society very much needs such constructive dialogue. If people from all sectors in Hong Kong can take the initiative to actively explore ideas, put their heads together, and build consensus, they will be able to find the key to solving the difficulties and try to turn the discord in Hong Kong society into harmony. The central government will continue to steadfastly implement the one country, two systems policy and basic law, and will spare no efforts in supporting growth and higher living standards in Hong Kong, and ensure that development outcomes will be shared extensively by the society and all the residents in Hong Kong. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yang Guang. Now we will open the floor for questions. Please identify yourselves and your media outlets before raising the question, and based on past practice, for the questions, it will be done in consecutive translation.
谢谢主持人，我是香港经济日报的记者。我的问题是，现在香港的示威抗争活动还是在继续。那之前也有信息是，显示特区政府也是在考虑引用这个紧急法来应对现在的局势。那中央政府是否认为现在香港的局势适合适用这个紧急法来处理？什么样的条件下适合这个应用紧急法？那对香港社会会带来一个什么样的影响？另外就是面对持续3个月的这个香港的抗争活动，中央有没有设定一个解决事态的最后底线？谢谢。
我想这个问题请我的同事来回答一下。
With Economic Times from Hong Kong, well, demonstrations and rallies are still going on in Hong Kong. According to some information, the SAR government is considering invoking the Emergency Regulation Ordinance to deal with the situation in Hong Kong. Does the central government think that such an ordinance applies to the current situation in Hong Kong, and under what conditions shall such an ordinance be applied? If so, what impact will it have on the Hong Kong society? Now, the demonstrations have been going on for 3 months. Has the central government set any time limit for the settlement of the situation? Thank you for your question. We have noted that the Hong Kong society is discussing whether the SAR government shall invoke the Emergency Regulation Ordinance to deal with the situation in Hong Kong. We have noted that Hong Kong is facing the most grim and emergent situation since its return to the motherland. Despite some positive turns, the violent activities have not been contained and causing grave impact on the public order and economy and people's well-being, and challenging the one country, two system policy. The most imperative task is to put an end to violence and restore order. We have noted that many organizations and residents have called for stronger measures to end violence and chaos. For example, enacting an anti-mask law. The central government fully supports the chief executive and the SAR government in using all necessary lawful means to put an end to violence and chaos, ensuring the life and safety of residents and their rights, and safeguard rule of law of Hong Kong. As for the time limit by the central government, let me say that the central government shares the aspiration of residents in Hong Kong, that is to put an end to violence and restore order as quickly as possible. One more day of turbulence will cause damage on society, and the people in Hong Kong will have to pay, and it will also impact the well-being of the 7 million Hong Kong residents. And such an aspiration, I believe, represents the aspiration of the people.
你好，我是儿童塔斯社记者，俄罗斯媒体。我想问一下，示威者提出了5大诉求，并强调5大诉求缺一不可。几天前，24名立法会议员联署发表公开信，要求中央尽快重启香港政改，落实双普选。对这些诉求，中央政府是什么态度？对其中的撤回修例法案和成立独立调查委员会，中央是否可以接受？特首拒绝这些诉求，是否应受到中央的指令？谢谢。
With tasks from Russia, the demonstrators put forth 5 demands and stressed that each and every one of the demands are indispensable. And several days ago, 24 members of the Legislative Council countersigned and issued a letter urging the central government to restart the electoral reform in Hong Kong as quickly as possible and implement universal suffrage for Chief Executive and the Legislative Council. And what is the attitude of the central government regarding these demands? Does the central government accept the demands to withdraw the amendment bill and form an independent inquiry commission? And is it because the chief executive has received some directives from the central government that she has declined these demands?
没想到你的汉语说得这么好。
Well, you speak very fluent Chinese, to my surprise. I heard your questions loud and clear.
在一个文明的
Well, let me say that in a civilized and law-based society, all the demands must be made in accordance with the law. And it must be pointed out with unequivocal terms that over the past 2 months, some radical protesters, with the pretext of 5 demands and in total disregard of the tranquility in Hong Kong and prosperity and stability there, recklessly committed crimes of violence, trampled rule of law and public order in Hong Kong, and challenged the bottom line of one country, 2 systems. Such acts have gravely endangered the interests of Hong Kong and the country. It is not at all about expressing any political demands. It is through and through political intimidation and hijacking. As I said in my opening remarks, their acts are no longer about the amendment bill. Their target is the SAR government, and their purpose is to take over the jurisdiction of Hong Kong, leaving one country, 2 systems dysfunctional except in name. The opposition camp and the radical protesters put forth the 5 demands, and the ultimate demand is the universal suffrage for the chief executive and the legislative council. To straighten things out, let me share with you the facts about the universal suffrage. First, let me make clear one basic fact. That is, the democratic system in Hong Kong has been truly established and developed only after the return to the motherland. And let me also point out another basic fact. That is, the very purpose of universal suffrage for Chief Executive and all the Legislative Council has been stipulated in the Basic Law of Hong Kong by the Chinese government. After the forming of the Hong Kong SAR, the central government has supported the Hong Kong SAR in accordance with the Hong Kong Basic Law and the relevant decisions of the NPC Standing Committee in developing democratic political system in a steady and fast way. As you may know, on December the 29th, 2007, the NPC Standing Committee made the decision and made it clear that in 2017, the Chief Executive can be selected through universal suffrage, and after that, the election of Legislative Council can be realized by universal suffrage, and thus a timetable for universal suffrage. And on August 31st, 2014, the NPC Standing Committee again made a decision on the framework and core elements of the universal suffrage of Chief Executive. That is what generally referred to as August 31st decision, which has been supported and endorsed by the majority of Hong Kong residents. Regretfully, however, with the vote against such a act formed by the SAR government according to the August 31st decision, the act failed to be adopted by 2/3 majority in the Legislative Council, and thus Hong Kong lost the precious opportunity to realize universal suffrage 20 years after its return to the motherland. It is the opposition that obstructed the democratic development in Hong Kong. Why the opposition acted against people's will and voted against this act? In the final analysis, it is because the universal suffrage system established according to the August 31st decision was not what they wanted. The universal suffrage system they wanted went beyond the provisions of Basic Law and NPC Standing Committee decisions. They want to select a chief executive that can represent their position and is not accountable to the central government, and then lay the groundwork for them to take over the highest jurisdiction in Hong Kong. And such a line is what they call true universal suffrage. Anything less than that is what they coined as false universal suffrage. Today, let me say it clearly that anyone who harbors such an idea will get nowhere. And whenever the electoral reform be started, the electoral system must accord with the Basic Law and the decisions by the NPC Standing Committee. And the universal suffrage system in Hong Kong must befit a basic principle, that is, it must befit Hong Kong's political status. What is Hong Kong's political status? Let me refer you to the 3 sentences in the Basic Law. The first sentence in the preamble says that Hong Kong has been part of the territory of China since ancient times. And the first article says that the SAR is an inalienable part of the People's Republic of China, and the Article 12 stipulates that the Hong Kong SAR shall be a local administrative region of the People's Republic of China, which shall enjoy a high degree of autonomy and come directly under the Chinese People's government. Each of the 3 sentences are the first sentence of the 3 chapters. This shows their importance. Put together, they give a complete and clear definition of Hong Kong's political status. Hong Kong's political system, including universal suffrage system, must come under such a political status. It is precisely because of this that Article 43 stipulates, which is also the first sentence of Chapter 4 about political structure, that the chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR shall be accountable to the Chinese People's government and the Hong Kong SAR in accordance with the provision of this law. And this is his or her most important duty and mission. And logically, according to Article 45, in the selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage should be conducted upon nomination by a broadly representative nominating committee in accordance with democratic procedures, and then universal suffrage, and then nomination by the central people's government. So nomination, universal suffrage, and appointment, all the three links are important and shall play its substantive role. These are the true nature of the universal suffrage system in Hong Kong. A system that meets the above-mentioned requirements are true universal suffrage. Only through such a system can a chief executive that loves the country and Hong Kong, with the trust of the central government and endorsement of Hong Kong people, can be selected. And only such a system can ensure full and accurate implementation of one country, two systems policy. This is only way forward for universal suffrage in Hong Kong. There's no other option. Eventually, everything must conform with the one country, two systems policy and basic law and relevant decisions by the NPC Standing Committee. As for other demands, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, and I want to stress here that the biggest call and strongest demand is to put an end to violence and chaos and restore order. This is the strongest will of the people, and that must be responded with most active and strongest response. We firmly support Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government in law-based governance, and for the Hong Kong police in strict law enforcement, and for relevant government departments and judicial institutions in law-based exercise of their functions and responsibilities, and to bring to justice those violent criminals. We hope that every resident in Hong Kong who love Hong Kong will use their own actions to support the government and police.
谢谢主持人。中央广电总台央视记者提问：我们也注意到港澳办形容香港出现了恐怖主义苗头和近乎恐怖主义的行为，也表示此次运动带有颜色革命的特征。那么到目前为止，中央对这场运动的性质怎么看？会采取什么与以往不同的措施？谢谢。
With China Media Group, according to the Hong Kong and Macao Affairs Office of the State Council, there have been signs of terrorism and near-terrorism behavior in Hong Kong, and that the demonstrations have taken on trace of a color revolution. So what is the central authorities' view on the nature of the demonstrations, and what different measures will be taken in response?
好，谢谢。
Thank you.
对于你的问题，我在刚开始的这个讲话里面也已经
In my opening remarks, I have actually responded to your question, but let me also add a few words here. When it comes to the current violence and illegal activities, well, whether there have been signs of terrorism, I believe we can see the answers by looking at what has been happening on the ground. In recent 3 months, a handful of radicals have been committing crimes recklessly. In particular, they have used all kinds of scrupulous means to injure the police smash shops, Paradise Airport, disrupt subway services, illegally detain innocent civilians. We have noticed that in their attacks against the police, they have escalated the weapons they are using. Some of those are quite lethal. They have also resorted to such shameless tricks. On the internet, they have disclosed information of police officers and their families. According to our statistics, about 1,600 police officers already have their information being disclosed by these people online. Some of these radicals even threatened to kill and bully those police and their families. Let's see what happened on August the 31st. Well, in the past, there may be just a few petrol bombs being thrown, but on August the 31st, in crowded areas, the radicals threw about 100 petrol bombs. They also rampantly vandalized facilities in the subway station and vandalized the control room of the subway station, severely disrupting the safe operation of the subway system. They also put forth the maniac slogan of mutual destruction. I actually do not understand this phrase because that is a local dialect, and I asked my colleagues about what it means, and when I'm told that this means that dying together, I don't know what you'll make of it. I can smell maniac and terrorism from such slogans. Some radicals are saying that even though the current violence has dealt damage to the Hong Kong status as international center of finance, this is okay and this should go on. So it seems that they are willing to do anything at any cost to achieve their political agenda. Well, now more and more people have now pointed out that their activities have taken on a terrorism undertone. As for a color revolution, this is becoming even more obvious. We can see that some thugs and rioters have been chanting slogans reeking of Hong Kong independence. For example, last time, as I mentioned, they have such slogans as liberating Hong Kong time, revolution of our times, which is really ridiculous. Recently, I also noticed that at a recent rally, they even put forth such slogans as an alliance among the UK, the US, and Hong Kong, and bring sovereignty to the people. I have said very elaborately on what kind of place Hong Kong is. It is a special administrative region of Hong Kong, of China. It is in no position to form alliance with other country. As for Hong Kong's sovereignty, it belongs to China and the 1.4 billion Chinese people. It is not up for discussion. So in the minds of these radicals, they are either ignorant and know nothing about law and Hong Kong's status, or they are just trying to flagrantly make Hong Kong into an independent or semi-independent political entity. So you can see on their face, on the left of their cheek is anti-China, on the right of their cheek is Hong Kong independence. You can see those signs clearly on their face. And we can also see that in this process, some Western politicians have been pointing their fingers and making irresponsible remarks about what happened in Hong Kong. They are bending over their backs to support and embolden the anti-China and the separatists in Hong Kong to even glorify their violent activities. It is fair to say that these politicians really added to the movement towards Hong Kong independence.
一些激进分子身上已经表现出了明显
So there are
颜色革命的特
already
征。
clearly features of color revolution if you look at the activities of those radicals. Their objective is to gain control of the SAR, to paralyze the SAR government, and to make one country, two
我们
systems
深刻的知道，
cease to exist except in name.
香港大多数市民
We know
包括许多的
clearly
年轻的
that
学生，
most of the residents in Hong
他
Kong,
们是参
including
与
many
和
young
平游行示
students,
威
they only
他们提
participate
出了
in
自己
peaceful demonstrations.
其他的一些诉求，
They have made clear
他们
their aspirations through such
那些
demonstrations,
严触
and
犯
they are
法律、
entirely
实施暴力
different
犯罪、
from
挑战一国两制底线的人，是完
those
全不同的。
perpetrators of violent crimes
但是
and those separatists
我们必须指出，
challenging one country,
香港
two
当前的
systems
这
and
场
seeking
风波
independence. But
的
I
走向
must point
不
out
是以他们
that
的意志
the
为
recent
转移的。
tensions regarding the recent tensions
在
in
少
Hong
数暴
Kong
徒
are not moving in a
行为
direction
幕后
consistent
黑手的
with
操纵下，
the will of
当前事
the
态
silent
已
majority,
经完全变
manipulated
质。
by the handful of thugs
所以
and
我们说
their
当前已经到了维
bosses
护一国
behind
两
the
制原
scenes.
则，
What
维护
happens
香
right
港
now
繁荣稳定
has
的
completely
重要
changed
关
in
头。
nature. So now we have come to a critical
一切
moment
热爱
of
香港
upholding
的
one
人
country and two
都应当
systems
用实际
and
行
to
动
putting an
与
end to
违法
violence and
犯罪分
restoring
子
order.
划清界限，
Every
向暴力行为说不，
one who
向破
loves
坏一
country
国两
and
制原则底线的
Hong
行
Kong
为
must
说不。
draw a clear line and take concrete actions and say no to violence and to activities that undermine one country and two systems.
好，谢谢凤凰卫视记者提问，是关于罢课问题的。我们看到昨天9月2号新学期开学之后，香港的很多大中学校是出现了一个罢课的情况。港澳办对于现在罢课情况是如何看的？另外，同时也注意到有一些中学生是涉及到一些暴力冲击过程当中，有分析指这背后的原因可能是香港的中小学教育出现了问题。港澳办对此如何看？谢谢。
With Phoenix TV, my question is about the strike at school. We know that starting from September the 2nd, several universities and middle schools in Hong Kong have begun to boycott school and classes. What is the view of the Hong Kong and Macau's Affairs Office on such phenomenon? And in addition, we know that some middle school students have participated in the violent clashes. Do you think the main reasons come from the secondary and primary education in Hong Kong?
好，谢谢。这个我想请我们的同事回答一下。
好，谢谢你的提问。
Thank you for your
我们注意到
question.
现在
We noticed
香港的一些反对派、
that
港独
some
分子和少数激进势力
opposition
正在不遗余力地
separatists and some radicals in Hong Kong are doing all they can to instigate students to skip school.
我想他们就是
We
想
have to
通过
ask
山
why
头
they are
罢课
doing this.
把街头的抗
I
争
believe
引
that
入校园
by doing this,
使这
they are
些
trying to
青年
bring
的
the
学
fight in the streets
把
into
这
the
些青年的
campus,
学生绑架在他们的政治
hijack
战车
the
成
young
为他
students,
们向特区政府和中央
and
政
make
府
them
来施压的
the
筹码
bargaining chip to apply political pressure on the SA government and the central government,
使这场乱局
so as
持
to
续
further
地
create
蔓延
even
下
more
去
stability and more strikes,
甚至于制造更
to
大的乱局
continue
甚至于
such
危险
tensions or
这种用
create
心是何
even
等的
more turbulence, such is their
学校
vicious
是增
attempt.
长学问
Well, school is a place for learning, growing, and building
孙中山
characters.
先生曾经
As
说过
Mr. Sun Yat-sen once
学校
said,
是文明进
school
化
is
之
the
源
source of the progress of
就在这样一个
civilizations.
神圣的地方
It is in such
一些
a
势力
sacred
为了
place.
达到他们不可告人
Some
的政治成功
forces, in order to
竟然不
achieve
惜
their
把
ulterior
黑手
motive
伸向了心智
politically,
尚未健
have
全的
extended
涉
their
世未
meddling
深的
hand
未成年人
into the campus and into
所以
the
大家看到
underage
一桩桩
teenagers
触
who
目
have
惊
yet to
心
mature
触目惊心的案
mentally.
例
So we have
我给大家
seen
读一下
a series of
自6月以来
striking
共有
cases.
15名
Since
未满
June,
16岁的未成年人
15
被捕
adolescents under
最
16
小的
years old have
年
been
仅12
arrested,
岁
the youngest
在
being
这
only
在
12
这名
years old.
12岁的被捕的少年的身上发现藏有铁质
And
喷
iron
漆等物
poles
品
sprays
sprays
were found on this 12-year-old.
示威者
On
身
August
上
the
藏有2枚的
31st,
汽油弹
the police arrested a 13-year-old protest with 2 petrol
我们
bombs
清
on
楚地
him.
看到
This
这
is
些
truly
暴力活动
horrifying.
的参与
And
者
we can see
幕后的黑
clearly
手
that the orchestrators or the organizers of those violent activities have no regard for the mental and physical health and the beautiful future of these young people who have been made the foot soldiers and the pawn in their violent clashes and have become political fuel by those people with ulterior motive. This is a heinous crime that must be stopped. Well, quite a few middle school students and university students have taken part in the violent clashes. This is truly saddening. School is where education is happening, and it is primarily the teachers who are responsible for education at school. Code of the Education Profession of Hong Kong provides that teachers have the responsibility to cultivate balanced and objective analysis capability among the students and give them a fair chance of learning. And we can see that some people are using their resources and power to spread the seeds of hatred, encourage students to skip class. This has really crossed a line. They have lost their basic decency as teachers. This should not be tolerated and must be punished to the full extent of the law. We have also noticed that the Hong Kong Education Bureau has made it clear that they oppose any forms of strike on campus, and no one should use school as the place to express their political aspirations. Many education groups also issued a signed statement asking the teachers to stand by their post and not support the strike. Some social groups also called for efforts to reject strike and save the children. From September the 2nd, all the students are back in school, and some schools also hold flag-raising ceremonies. So we must be able to see that the activities of the radicals do not have support among the people. The central government firmly supports the SAR government and the educators and the citizens to stop anyone from threatening or luring or coaxing young students into joining radical political movements, protect their right to receive education without interference, and restore peace and tranquility on campus. Thank you.
谢谢。日本读卖新闻。我想问的是，香港基本法有关问题。人大常委会香港基本法委员会的唐慧珠副主任，8月30号在人民日报发表文章。该文章提到基本法18条的规定之后，指出无论是哪一条，都说明驻军不是在中营里的稻草人。 是全面准确贯彻“一国两制”方针的重要力量。基本法18条规定，人大常委会决定，香港进入紧急状态，中央政府可以发布命令，将有关全国性法律，在香港实施。请问发言人，驻军和武警，根据基本法18条的规定。 是否在这种情况下，可以出动？谢谢。
Please, Yomiuri Russian from Japan. My question is about Hong Kong's basic law. On August 30th, the deputy head of the Hong Kong Basic Law Committee of the NPC National Committee, Tang Huizhu, wrote an article on People's Daily and mentioned Article 18 of the Basic Law, and she said that. No matter which articles point out that the garrison force is not scarecrow in military camp, but an important force for comprehensive and accurate implementation of the one country, two systems policy. And according to Article 18 in the Basic Law, the NPC Standing Committee decides that the region is in a state of emergency. The Central People's Government may issue an order applying the relevant national laws in the region. So does it mean that, according to Article 18, the garrison force and armed police can be deployed. Thank you for your question. Or to end violence and chaos and restore order is the most pressing task in Hong Kong. The central government firmly supports Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government in law-based governance, for Hong Kong police in strict law enforcement, and for relevant government departments and judicial agencies in Hong Kong to mete out due punishment with as stern and quickly as possible to restore order and rule of law in Hong Kong. We are confident that with the firm support of the central government and with the cooperation of Hong Kong compatriots, the Hong Kong SAR government has the will and capability to take all law-based and strong measures to realize an end to violence and chaos as quickly as possible, restore order and uphold rule of law. The central government will never allow the situation in Hong Kong to continue unabated. If the situation continues to deteriorate and morphs into a turmoil that endangers national sovereignty and security that is beyond the control of the SAR government, the central government will never sit idly by. The PLA garrison in Hong Kong's responsibilities, according to Basic Law and Garrison Law, include safeguard national sovereignty and unity and territorial integrity and safety of Hong Kong. According to Article 14 of the Basic Law, when necessary, the SAR government may ask the Central People's Government for assistance from the garrison in the maintenance of public order and for disaster relief. And according to Article 18, by reason of turmoil within the Hong Kong SAR, which endangers national unity or security and is beyond the control of the government of the region, the NPC Standing Committee decides that the region is in a state of emergency. The Central People's Government may issue an order applying the relevant national laws in the region. I have read Article 14 and Article 18, and that explains that in face of the state of emergency, relevant national laws, when necessary, can be applied in the region. And there is a notion in society that deployment of garrison means an end of the one country, two systems. That is absolutely wrong. Be it Central People's Government, at the request of the SAR government, deploys garrison in assistance of public order and disaster relief, or the NPC Standing Committee makes the decision that the SAR enters a state of emergency. They all conform with the provisions of Basic Law, with the framework of one country, two systems, and part of the political system in Hong Kong SAR.
你好，香港《星岛日报》提问，请问一下，中央宣布支持深圳建设中国特色社会主义先行示范区的背景和考虑是什么？是否意在针对香港取而代之？谢谢。
With Xindao News, the central government announced the support for Shenzhen to establish a pioneer demonstration zone of socialism with Chinese characteristics. What is the background and considerations? Does it mean that this policy is targeted at Hong Kong or for Shenzhen to replace Hong Kong? Let me answer your question. The CPC Central Committee and State Council issued the opinion in support of Shenzhen in developing a pioneering demonstration zone of socialist market economy with Chinese characteristics. This is a major strategic measure to advance reform and opening up at a higher starting point, at a higher level, and for higher goals, for new progress in comprehensively deepening reform and expanding opening up in the new era of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Such a step also helps with the development of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area and the new practices of the one country, two systems cause. We've noted the great attention from Hong Kong and international community once the opinion was released. Some people worried if the central government intended for Shenzhen to grow stronger and replace Hong Kong. This clearly is a misinterpretation of the document. The fact is, the document provides most favorable steps for Hong Kong's development. If we look closer at the document, the bulk of it helps Hong Kong for its long-term development and prosperity and stability in the long run. And the document reflects the central government's long-standing care and support for Hong Kong. Let me give you some examples. It is clearly stipulated in the opinion that it is important to seize important opportunities in developing the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Areas and enhance the core function as an engine for development. This is not just a higher requirement for Shenzhen, but a higher expectation for Hong Kong. And it is also clearly stipulated in the opinion that it is important to further deepen the Qianhai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong modern services cooperation area and seek institutional innovation and greater openness for Hong Kong and Macau, and accelerate the development of a cooperation zone between Hong Kong and Shenzhen for scientific and technological innovation, and explore coordinated models for development and seek innovations in management mechanisms and promote high-speed and convenient flows of personnel, capital, technologies, and information. And it is fair to say that this document has seized the important elements and put forth some specific measures. For example, greater cooperation in digital and creative industries and provide convenience for medical institutions invested by Hong Kong and Macau investors. And according to the document, there will be higher opening to Hong Kong and Macau so that Hong Kong and Macau residents will enjoy the treatment of Shenzhen residents when they work and live in the mainland, thus addressing the misgivings of many Hong Kong and Macau residents. And the central government supports Hong Kong and Macau in integrating in the overall development of the country and continue to play their unique and irreplaceable role. But to achieve that, Hong Kong has to redouble its efforts. Time and tide wait for no man, and no one should miss out precious opportunities. Hong Kong cannot afford internal turbulence. Development entails the greatest well-being for Hong Kong. Currently, a handful of thugs in Hong Kong to achieve their political agenda have conducted acts at the expense of prosperity and stability in Hong Kong. I believe that people of all walks of life in Hong Kong will not tolerate such political motives by these thugs to jeopardize Hong Kong's future and the fundamental interests of people in Hong Kong. For 7 million residents in Hong Kong, I guess nothing is more important than development.
谢谢主持人。中国日报提问：8月30日，特朗普将这个中美贸易战和香港局势挂钩，他再次敦促中方用人道方式来处理香港的示威活动。另外，在8月26日结束的这个G7峰会发布的声明上面称，G7重申1984年中英联合声明的存在和重要性，并且呼吁避免暴力。请问发言人对此有何评论？谢谢。
With China Daily, on August the 30th, President Donald Trump linked China-US trade war with the situation in Hong Kong and once again urged China to handle the demonstrations in Hong Kong in a humane way. The statement of the G7 that ended on August the 26th also said that the G7 reaffirms the existence and importance of the Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1984 on Hong Kong and calls for violence to be avoided. What is your response to that?
好，谢谢。
Thank you.
必须说明，
Well, it must be pointed out that
无权介入
the UK has no
香港
right
的事务。
to supervise Hong Kong
根据
affairs.
国际基本法基本原则
According
和
to
国
the
际关
basic
系
principles of
基本准则
international law and the basic norms governing international relations, all countries have
内政
equal
不受外
sovereignty
国干涉。
and their internal affairs
香
are
港
not
回归后
subject to foreign
成为
interference.
中国的一
After
个
Hong Kong's
地方
return
行
to the
政区域
motherland, it has become
香
a
港
local
事务
administrative
属于中
region
国内
of
政
China, and
任何
Hong Kong
国家
affairs
不得干
are
涉
China's internal
对立
affairs
场
in
或
which
者
no
多次
country can interfere. And we have made that point
但是
time
3个月
and
来
again.
我们看到
Yet over the past 3
西方
months,
特别是美国一些
we
政
can
府
see that some
不断地
politicians from the West,
对香港
especially
事务
the United States,
说三道四，
have been incessantly making
可谓不绝于耳。
irresponsible remarks about the affairs
因为这
in
方面
Hong
的
Kong.
事情太多了，我今天就不再一一列举。
Well, there are so many
我
such
认真地看了他们，
rhetoric and cases. I will not list
给
them
他们做了一
one
下
by
总
one
结。
today. I have
无论他们说什么，
looked at all those
万变
statements
不离
very
其宗，
carefully, and I
概
made
括起
this
来
summary
其实就是两个意思，
in mainly
第一个
two
意思
aspects.
就是
First,
一本正经的说瞎话，
they are
颠倒
shooting
黑
their
白
mouth off
罔顾事实，
nonsense
指鹿为马。
in a serious way,
只要遇到警察，
reversing black and white and
严正执
confusing
法，
right and wrong.
就一定
Whenever
说
the police are
警察有错。
enforcing the law, the
武力过
police,
度
according to them, will
只要
use
是
excess
激进
brutality.
示威分子违法犯罪，
As
到
long
暴力
as it
冲突
is
暴力冲
the
突
whenever
他
it
表
is
示
the
应当
demonstrators
给予同情
who
和理解。
instigated violent clashes, they must
是
be
第一条。
given sympathy and understanding.
第二条就是不断的
And the
对少
second
数暴徒撑腰打气，
perspective I can see from this
煽风点
rhetoric is that they have been
生怕他们
emboldening those
害怕
radicals
退缩
and
了，
giving them
没有士
support.
气了。
They
我想说到底，说了3个月，
really do not want to see
他们的各种言
these
论无非就是围着这两条打
radicals
转转。
backing off. So these
想，
are the two main
如果是在
perspectives
他们自
of
己的本
the
国
Western rhetorics.
发生了香港
And
这样的，
I believe that
骚乱，
if the kind of riots that
他们是
happened
绝对
in
不敢
Hong Kong
对
occurred
本国
on
警
their
察
home soil,
说一
they
句这
dare
样的话。
not say such a
可见
word to their
这些人的目的
police.
绝对不是为了香港的前
So
途好，
what these people have in mind are not the future prospects of Hong Kong.
想
What
趁
they are
火打劫，
doing is that they are exploiting the
把香
situation
港
and
捣
the
乱，
turbulence in
给
Hong
中
Kong,
国
try
制造
to
麻烦。
destabilize
因此，
Hong Kong and create trouble for China. That
我
is
想
all
告诫
they're trying to
这些
achieve.
西方的先生们，
And I want to
香港是
warn
中
these
国的香
people
港，
from the West that Hong Kong is
香港
China's
事
Hong
务
Kong
绝不容许
and Hong
任
Kong
何外
affairs
国干涉。
can never be interfered by any
他
foreign
们的这手
country.
把戏，在别的地方曾经
Well,
得过
such
手，
tricks may have worked in some other
在
places,
当地留下满目疮痍
leaving those places in
和
ruins
除不尽的社会对立和
and
仇
endless social
但是
confrontation
在香港，
and
在
hatred.
中国的土地上
But in China, on
这套
Chinese
把戏
soil in Hong
不
Kong,
管用，
such tricks will not work.
黄粱一梦，该醒醒了。
It is time to wake up.
想到这，说到这的时候，我突然想起毛主席的一首词，
And this
其
brings
中有这
me
么几句：
a poem written by
小
Chairman
小
Mao.
环球，有几个苍蝇
The
碰
world
地
may be
嗡嗡
small,
叫，几声凄厉，
there might be some
几
flies
声抽泣，
flying around,
说的真是
whimpering
很
and
形象
crying. I believe that is very fitting to describe what is happening.
看看今天的澳门的记者有想提问吗？好，那第3排这位女记者。
谢谢主持人，发言人好，来自澳亚卫视的记者。那8月25号呢，贺一诚当选了新一任的澳门特区行政长官，也是第5任的行政长官。想问中央对新一任的澳门特区行政长官在未来5年的任期内有一些什么样的期待？谢谢。
With MAS TV, on August the 25th, Ho Lat San was elected the 5th chief executive of the Macao SAR. What would be the expectations of the central government for the new Macao chief executive in his 5-year term?
好，谢谢你的提问。
Thank you for your question.
贺一诚先生
Mr. Ho Lat San
中央政府
lives up to the standards of the central government for chief executives that they must be trusted by the central government, love the nation and Macau, and have management capability and support of the people in Macau. The fact that he was elected overwhelmingly speaks to the fact that he has received wide support and recognition in Macau, and the central government will complete relevant procedures in accordance with the law. This year marks the 20th anniversary of Macau's return to the motherland, and one country, two systems have come to a new historical starting point. We hope all sectors in Macau will actively support Mr. Ho Lat San and carry forward the fine tradition of loving the nation and Macau, fully and accurately implement one country, two systems policy, uphold the authority of the Constitution and the basic law, elevate governance level of the SAR, promote appropriately diverse economic growth of Macau, actively integrate Macau into China's overall development, and create new prospects for one country, two systems in Macau. And last question.
看看大家有没有好，后面这位女记者穿红衣服的。
谢谢主持人。这周末香港见证了第13个礼拜的游行，示威者和……
请问您是哪家新闻？
亚洲新闻台记者提问，谢谢。那香港见证了第13个礼拜的游行，示威者和政府继续陷入僵局。随着暴乱不断升级及最近我们看到领导人的讲话被录音，北京将如何协助香港政府重建威信，寻求香港回到长治久安的局面？另外，北京对国外网络和传统媒体对香港事件的报道有何看法，以及会如何采取进一步行动厘清公众的了解？谢谢。
With Channel News Asia, this weekend Hong Kong has witnessed demonstrations for the 13th week. The demonstrators and the SAR government are still locked in a deadlock. As the violent turbulence and clashes continue to escalate, and as the remarks of the chief executive were caught on record, how will Beijing help the Hong Kong SAR government restore normalcy and order, as well as lasting peace and security in Hong Kong? In addition, what is Beijing's view on the reports on the Hong Kong incident by overseas internet and traditional media, and what further actions will Beijing take to provide a clearer understanding for the public?
好，谢谢你的提问。这里面有
Thank you for your question. There are several small questions. First is, how will the central government help the SAR government restore order? I believe the incident regarding the amendment bill has completely changed in nature. So the most important thing is to stop violence and restore order. The central government firmly supports the Chief Executive Carrie Lam in leading the SAR government in accordance with the law, and we firmly support the Hong Kong police in enforcing the law. And when it comes to the police, I also want to add a few words. You mentioned this has been the 13th week of demonstrations in Hong Kong. It is the police who have been at the forefront of handling the situation. They are also the biggest target of the violent protesters. They have treated the police with extreme brutality. Now more than 200 police officers have been injured. One was severely wounded with his finger cut off. And according to statistics, 1,700 police officers and their families' information have been illegally circulated and disclosed. And this has cast a toll on the mental state of the police forces and their families. So under such strong pressure, heavy pressure, the Hong Kong police forces have still exercised calm and restraint and used minimum force and strictly enforced the law. So there's no doubt Hong Kong police have lived up to their reputation as being the best in the world. So the central government gives them firm support. We support the Hong Kong police and the SAR government in taking all necessary measures to stop violence and fight crimes. We firmly support greater support for the law enforcement by the Hong Kong police, and we will offer the greatest protection to the police officers and their families. So that is my response for the first question.
Well, over the past 13 weeks of demonstrations, some residents wanted to express their demands with peaceful means. It is important to distinguish these residents from the criminal acts that challenge the one country, two systems bottom line. Deep-seated issues revealed in the past month of demonstrations deserve our attention. We hope that the Hong Kong society will focus on the development of the economy and improvement of people's well-being and pour wisdom to draw the blueprint for the future of Hong Kong. The central government will firmly support Hong Kong in improving the economy and people's livelihood and integrating into the development of the whole nation, and for greater development of the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macao Greater Bay Area, the central government has come up with specific measures to promote integration of these three areas and policies to make the lives of Hong Kong and Macau people living and working in the mainland easier and more convenient. Going forward, the central government will continue to introduce practical measures to facilitate the development of Hong Kong and Macau. I'm confident that with the strong support of the central government, Hong Kong will maintain its stability. But whether Hong Kong can make good use of the favorable policies and deliver benefits to all the residents, fundamentally it requires the redoubled efforts by Hong Kong on its own. And let me also make some response on the question raised by the Phoenix TV's journalist. In the past months of demonstrations and even violent conflicts, there were cases of humiliating national flag, including defacing national flag, national emblem, and even burning the national flag. While condemning these reckless and brazen acts by a few thugs, we need to ask the question why such cases keep happening in Hong Kong, a special administrative region in China. We have to ask the question, the national knowledge education, is such education adequate and does it need improvement? And this is a question that deserves high attention. And that measures must be taken to address this matter. When violence and chaos have ended and law and order is restored, the government and residents in Hong Kong must take this as an important task. This is a responsibility of Hong Kong society and a responsible measure for the next generation. Now, I would like to thank the two spokespersons, and that brings us to the end of the press conference.